We're back with some more VC fun. Right now, we're going to pull out one of the VC members, simulate a failure or a hardware swap, maybe it's an RMA, and add it back in. I don't have 4 EX4300s, I only have the 3, and they're already all linked up together. So when I pull that out, I'm going to reset its VC state, essentially returning it to its out of the box state, where it's basically the routing engine master, if you will, of a virtual chassis 1. Once it's in that state, I'll reconnect it, and it will come back up with the next available FPC number. It should be FPC3, but we can verify that when we look at the settings. And I'll have to do some renaming, some recycling as well to make sure that we get that number sequence, so that if you're looking at the stack from the front, 0, 1, 2, as opposed to 0, 3, 2. So let's get started. I'm on the master right now, should be 4. And we'll do a show virtual chassis, and we can see that I've got my master, my backup, and my line card. And I'm just going to record this start state here. And we've got FPC 0, FPC 1, FPC 2. And I want to just make sure I've got these serial numbers here, because these are the only sticky bits. Everything else here can actually change. All right, so that's the order that we want to get these back into when we're all done. And the member IDs are going to match the FPC number, so I don't need to worry about recording those. So since we're in a stable state, I am going to go unplug the basically FPC 1. And I'll switch over to it first here. This is FPC 1 right here. Just do root. So that's config. It's probably going to log me to master here. Do a clear. So you can see that even when I log into other members, as long as I'm connected, it's still going to have me kind of connected to the master routing engine. That will change when I go pull the cables. And I'm not even going to pause the video because it's going to go really quickly and I don't want to miss the messages on the scroll. So I'm just going to run out of my office and pull those cables out. And in the meantime, you can laugh at the fact that this one corner of my rug is visible because I haven't covered it in green yet. So I'll be right back. All right, that's all done. And you can see that it's bumped me back to a login screen because I was logged into the master, and now I'm not on the master anymore. So this will put me in here, and now you can see I'm in a line card role, and you get the warning messages. And if I say virtual chassis, it's going to say I'm a line card. It's going to say those other ones aren't present. It's going to complain. I go back over here, I can do show virtual chassis, and you can see that it's not present. Also, if I look at the virtual chassis VC ports, we'll see that I only have one that's up right now, and that's because I'm in a daisy chain. So when I unplug the 2 cables from the back of FPC 1, I'm disconnecting one from FPC 0 and one from FPC 2. And that just means that there's only one link left that goes between 0 and 2. That's totally expected. Just food for thought, though. It's not like I still have 2 connections. I am now not resilient across that chain. There is only one link between those 2 switches, and if that link's lost, then I'll lose the other device as well. So we need to get the device I just unplugged back into a kind of like neutral state where it thinks it's not a member of this virtual chassis. So we'll do a request virtual chassis reactivate, enter. And you can see the message here telling you what it's going to do. Member split from a virtual chassis. Perfect. I'll say yes. And we'll wait for a minute while it does all this. Show virtual chassis. Now, you'll note that it kept its FPC number. I don't necessarily want that. I kind of want it back at a normal state. Now, you could always zeroize the switch too, but I don't want to save time. So I'm just going to do request virtual chassis renumber. Member ID 1, new member ID 0. And then it gives you a little warning that when you have configurations, like show configuration interface. Nope. Interesting. Oh, it's restarting the CLI. Of course, I'm getting ahead of myself. No wonder you're not taking the commands. What it's warning you about there is that if you have, and you can kind of see it there, if you have interfaces that are defined, that leading zero, that leading number is the FPC number. So if you renumber stuff and you have configuration that is applied to one type of device and you change the number, then the configuration might not be valid. Now, in nearly every case that you're going to run into, you don't have to worry about that. You'll have your numbering. It'll be logical as long as everything's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way down. You pull something out of the middle. As long as you renumber it to what it needs to be in that sequence, you'll be fine. You don't have to touch your config. All right, here's all the restarty stuff, virtual chassis. And look, we're back to that, that role. I'm also going to load factory defaults, and the reason I'm going to do that is just so that I have a blank config when I plug this back in. There's not a risk. I already have a defined RE, so it's not like, VLAN trunking protocol where if I have a rev number that's lower, it's going to wipe everything out. It'll wipe the config here because I already have a master. But I'm just going to, for the sake of sanity, do a load override factory. Load override. I guess load. Oh, because I don't use that override. You just do load factory default. It does the override for you. And I can't commit this until I do a set system root authentication, plain text password, and put in my super simple lab password. I can do a commit and quit here. And now this thing's on an island. Kind of simulating like it's out of the box. Not quite. All right, so what we'll do now is we'll plug it back in, and what we've essentially done is we simulated a maintenance or a failure of FPC1 in the virtual chassis. So if we go back here, it's still going to give us the same information. It's going to say, I've got a master, I've got a backup. Well, what do we do about this? So if I plug this back in, it's probably going to detect that serial number and it's going to stick it back where it's supposed to go. And I kind of don't want to do that. I kind of want it to think it's a new switch because that's going to be more of a real world scenario for you. So let's do request virtual chassis, recycle, member ID 1. Guess what? There we go. And you can see that it's going to say the next member is 1. Now you saw up here it said the next new member is 3. Now I put over here that I was going to have to recycle or renumber the switch. This really just depends on what you're doing. If I was adding another switch, or if I hadn't deleted this and it was a different serial number, it would have given it 3 and I would have had to have recycled 1 to make it available and then renumbered. So there's a little bit of voodoo. What I need to do here though is when I plug this switch in, it should just take the role of FPC1. You can also see the failover worked the way it's supposed to. This is now the backup. When I plug that FPC1 back in, it should take over the backup role because of the mastership priorities that we have defined here. So we should be ready for that now. Let me just make sure this looks happy. It does. So again, I'm not going to pause the video. I'm just going to go plug these back in. And this time we're going to keep an eye on this. And I'll be right back. All right, so that's plugged in. And this will take a minute. You can see that it's detected it, but it's still doing its background hoodoo voodoo here. And there we go. We've got the right serial number, FPC, and you can see it's already flipped these over. So I've got master and backup. Now there's a hold down timer if you're wondering why this isn't 254 like the configuration shows. It's because there is a hold down timer. So it is going to wait. I think it's, what is it, 133 minutes maybe? I think, maybe 5? I don't recall off the top of my head. But it essentially will force you to wait before you can make other types of changes and such. So we're just gonna, while we're waiting for that hold down, this will eventually go to 254, but we should be in it's already switched to CLI. It's gonna log me into the master. We've already flipped over. Actually, I guess it's got me on the backup because I didn't actually log out. But if I log out and then I log back in, it'll log me into the master. And there we go. it sees that I'm on the RE, which is essentially just here as well. So that's all there is to it. We don't need to wait for the master ship there to flip. Just trust me, it will eventually turn to 254. If you have any questions, again, reach out, ask me. Commands I used here was recycle, so I could actually put that FPC number back into the pool that's available. And then I used a renumber command where you say, member ID and then new member ID, and you just change number from, in this case, 1 to 0. That's it. I'm going to get back to building out the stack. I do have the configuration already pulled over from the Cisco. I've got just a few more things I need to throw in, not the least of which is the QoS configuration. And then I'm going to start doing some resiliency testing, pulling power out, seeing if I can simulate VC failures. Any questions, as always, either put them in the comments or shoot me an email, and have a great day. Talk to you soon.